Excellent. So good morning and welcome everyone. And thank you for all of you across the region who has joined us today. It is always a pleasure, feeling like you're in the whole Caribbean in a few hours. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for all your interest and your support for the CCRAF. As we have discussed, this is a platform that we realized was required to assist in sharing knowledge, sharing some of the practices, some of the experiences across the region so we can, learn from each other and build upon the initiatives and the various activities that we do in our individual countries. So with that, my name is Nikelia Gregoire-Karai. I'm a technical specialist in soil and water management with ICA. I am from the Nature Isle of Dominica. And so I want to thank you all again for joining us. I know many of you have been following the CCRAF for a while now. So, but for those of you who might be new today, I will just go through a bit of, what the CCRAF is about, what are our objectives. So, of course, as I mentioned, for those of you who just joined us, the recording will be made available. You can just go onto our YouTube channel. We recently created a YouTube channel for easier access to the recording. And we have the AgriProfiles platform where we will share the PowerPoint, but for quicker access, it will be shared via email. Please mute your mic while we go through the presentation to allow less disturbances, and we will have the discussion session. And we do encourage you to, speak in the mic and, engage directly with the presenter so we can have a, a nice discussion and get a lot of the experiences across the region. Also, feel free to, I know, you all love my beautiful face. I believe it's beautiful. But I would be nice that I see some faces as well. So if you're able to, we welcome you, opening up your camera so we can have a look at the persons, the beautiful places across the region. So for persons who are new, our key objectives under the CCRAF, which is developed as a knowledge to action framework, a knowledge to action platform. First of all, it is to share knowledge of resilient agricultural practices. So we're looking at agriculture in a global scale. Of course, definitely looking to build a community of engaged actors, which are all of you who are joining us today. And of course, definitely enhancing collaboration in meeting goals, in improving collaboration becomes very important. We do speak of it a lot, especially at the high levels, in conferences. One of the main things that always comes up says that we require more collaboration. So this is one of the things we're trying to foster under the CCRAF, but very important for us. We know we do have a lot of talk here and there, but very important for us is, we share the knowledge, we share the experiences, but we also looking to build up on translating those knowledge, those information into action, practical, relevant action on the ground. And so stemming from that objective, very important for us, we would have launched the CCRAF on the road, which is looking that we will be in some of the countries. Next week, we will be in Jamaica. So I hope that we can meet some of you. So we'll be in Jamaica doing a training through the ICA office in Jamaica and the Ministry of Agriculture there. So we definitely hitting the road and definitely hoping that we can meet some of you. And so today we have with us Dr. Kathy Dalip. She is in Jamaica at this point. Of course, I'll allow her to speak a bit more about herself. And she will be sharing with us various practices for pest management. And basically, that is our schedule for today, keeping it simple, keeping it tight, because we want to get into discussion where you can ask your questions and you can share your experiences. And so with that, I pass on to Kathy, and then while Kathy is preparing her screen, I will be sharing a baseline poll. Of course, those are important for us to track progress and help us, improve the sessions as we go. And of course, we encourage you to email us, send us a message on ways we can improve topics that, we should discuss through the CCRAF. So with that, I pass you on to Kathy, who will say a little about herself and go straight into the presentation while I share the poll on the screen.
Okay, thanks. Nikelia, can you allow me to share my screen as well, please? Thank you.
Yes, you can go ahead. So while Kathy is preparing to share her screen, for those of you who have just joined us, the recording will be shared and you can go straight to our YouTube page. About an hour after, allow me some time to download from Zoom, and it will be available on our YouTube platform. Over to you, Kathy.
Thanks again, Nikelia. So, as Nikelia mentioned, my name is Kathy Dalip. I'm an entomologist by training. I've worked in mainly the agricultural sector. I have some experience in the urban environment as well. So I've worked, I did some research at the University of the West Indies in Jamaica. I am Trinidadian. I'm born in Trinidad, but I live in Jamaica right now. I worked at Cardi, Jamaica office, and I also worked at the Belize office. And then I came back to Jamaica, and then I was in the private sector working with Caribbean Chemicals, Jamaica. And right now I'm doing my own thing. I'm on my own. So that's a brief, brief synopsis of who I am, what I do. So today we're going to talk about the eco-friendly practices for pest management. I just want to put my stuff. Okay. And before we go into the meat of the matter, I just wanted to, ask a few questions and set the tone basically. So what is a pest? I'm sure everybody has their own version of what a pest is. And you have pieces and of what it would be. But I'll give you a few seconds just to think about it before I go on to the next slide to give what my definition of a pest is. And you can compare and see if what you were thinking is what is my definition of a pest. So it's any living organism, that can cause some sort of injury or damage. And that could be to crop, plant, an animal that you're rearing for for any purpose of trade. And it could be the crop or the livestock, you have products from it that would be of economic value. And so the pest would be an organism that damages or interferes or injures any of those descriptions. A pest is also an organism that can damage structures, and it can spread disease to our plants, animals, humans. And we can also have pests that's what we call nuisance pests, where they may not cause major harm, but they're just a nuisance being around, right? So having given that definition of a pest, we'd like a poll now to say, does the presence of an organism in an area where it is not wanted, does that make it a pest? So if you have one individual of this organism that you know is typically a pest, do you consider that to be a pest? And it's a simple yes or no response.
So we have the poll on the screen. We'll give persons a few seconds to answer, and then I will share on the screen what the responses are. Okay. So we have, I'll give a quick countdown soon. Your persons are voting. Check your screen, vote yes or no, yes or no. Does the presence of an organism in an area where is it not wanted makes it a pest? Is it yes? Is it no? So far we have 78 persons. So we have 15 seconds. 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lovely. So we're gonna share the results on the screen. Over to you, Kafi.
Okay, so many persons have said that the presence of an organism, one individual is what I meant, in an area it is not wanted, does that make it a pest? And 69% said yes, and 31% said no. Okay, so that is what traditionally we've considered what a pest is. But for the purposes of this presentation, something to think about. It's only when the population reaches of that organism reaches a level where it can cause economic loss to you as a farmer or aesthetic loss to your crop. That is when we consider it to be a pest. So one individual on a plant, one caterpillar on a plant may not necessarily be a pest, but when you have several of them causing some economic loss to your crop, then it will be considered a pest. And this thing is a dynamic status. So the pest status is not, it won't be considered a pest all the time, because as I said, is when the population numbers increase to a level where it's causing some sort of damage or loss to you or your commodity. That is when you'd be considered a pest. So it may vary with the time of the year or the season, or it may vary in a particular environment. Maybe it may not thrive in a very dry environment or a very wet environment. So when those conditions are present, it wouldn't, the numbers will be low, so it would not be considered a pest. But it would be a pest if the conditions change that are more favorable to the population increasing. So let's go on to some types of pests. Okay, so we have pests that can be in different categories. So we have plants, and we call plant pests weeds. We have animals, which can belong to the mammals, birds, rodents, and birds, monkeys. We have the arthropods, insects, ticks and mites. We have the softer bodied mollusks and snails and slugs. We have also the nematodes, which are invertebrates. And then we have the pathogens, which would be like your viruses, your bacteria, fungi, which are all categories of pests. Okay? Want to know if, before we go a little further, we want to know, do we know what pest is present in our farmer house? Do we know what we have here? Is it a pest and is it present? So some of the typical pests you might encounter. I'll give you a few seconds. You can just probably type it in the chat. Examples of agricultural pests. There are some that are sort of cosmopolitan that we'll find across the Caribbean, and even in the and tropical countries. They may be a little different in some of the tropical countries, but with climate similar to ours, we'd have many that will go across borders.
We have a few coming in. We have mites, we have aphids, we have grasshoppers, we have green stink bugs, we have monkeys, white flies, giant African snail, rats and mice. They are coming in, they're coming in. Ants. Okay. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Over to you,
Okay.
Kathy. We have
Okay.
thrips. Thrips.
Okay. Trips, right? Okay. So what I wanted to do is just put them into two categories. We'll first look at the agricultural pests and then we look at some urban pests, just for completeness. Okay. So you have a lot more than what I put up on my screen, but I just wanted to give a few of the more common ones. So all that you mentioned, I have here, we have aphids, whiteflies, thrips, caterpillars, mites, slugs, and snails. And have a few photos just to show you, give an example of what they look like, because remember, you have to be able to identify them. So the first photo on the left is of aphids on the underside, and you normally find them on the underside of the leaf. So remember, if you're looking, you may not necessarily see them on the top surface of the leaf, but if you turn over the leaf, you may see that you have aphids there. The photo next it is a photo of whitefly. So there you have both adults and nymphs on the underside of that leaf. And with whiteflies, if you have whitefly infestation, you just shake the plant, you'll just see them flying. It's just these little whites. They look like tiny white moths. You'll see them just flying out from the plant once you shake it. The next photo going across to the right is one of armyworms, and as the name suggests, these you often find them in large numbers, and they can move across a field and decimate it within a few hours, because they are very voracious feeders, and so they can wipe out a large proportion of your field, especially if it's a leafy crop, in a short space of time. And then next to that, we have the spider mites, and you might see the leaves looking a little bronze. That's a typical telltale sign of spider mites. And again, they're on the underside of the leaves, and you may even see some webbing. Well, especially for spider mites. The other mites may not have webbing, but with the spider mites, a bit easier to tell because you will see webbing, as the name suggests, like a spider. Okay. Going on the bottom row, that's a photograph of a diamondback moth larvae. I put that one because I think a lot of people know that whether you're a householder, a farmer, you will know the diamondback moth because you find these little green caterpillars or larvae of the diamondback moth on your cabbage, on your cauliflower, lots of the brassicas you'd find, and broccoli, etc. And it's the larval stage for the caterpillar that causes the damage. The adult moth does not cause that damage to your plants. And then going across, we have the slugs and the snails. And the slugs and snails, they have rasping mouthparts, so you can see the surface of your leaf just being is like if you're taking something and scraping it off, and you can cause windowing or even the leaf being eaten off. Okay, so those are some of the agricultural pests that you'd find, that you would be more likely to find. Going on to some of the diseases, you have anthracnose, you have fusarium root rot, we have some nematodes, which we find in the soil, root knot nematodes, I mentioned. Some weeds, some of the more common ones. I know there are a lot more than what I have, so I just put two examples, the whitehead and the foul-foot grass. So the two top photos of the tomato and mango, those are affected with anthracnose. The next two photographs, a potato tuber and the stalk of a bean, and those are both affected by fusarium root rot. On the bottom row, we have the root knot nematodes, and you can see where the nematodes form this gall or cyst, so which prevents free movement of nutrients and water to the plant. So you'll see the plant actually starting to just look sickly and wilting when you have root knot nematode over time. And then the last two photographs are weeds, the white top or white head, and the foul-foot grass. So those are some of our agricultural pests. In terms of the household pests, so I know that some were mentioned before. We had ants, which go across both, but you have different types of ants that are household pests and some different, may have some leaf cutting ants that you would find in the agricultural situation. I think I heard Nikhil mention cockroaches, rodents, rats and mice, which they are also agricultural pests. You can see rats feeding on sweet potato, especially we have them in Jamaica that they're a pest of sweet potato crop. So I'm not sure if anybody has others, but a few of them that I mentioned would be mosquitoes and cockroaches, termites, and rodents. So in the photograph, you see Culex and Aedes aegypti mosquitoes, you have sugar ants, below you have rodents and rats and termites. Okay. So we have another poll now coming up, and that's, we typically talk about pest control and pest management, and I think oftentimes we use the two terms interchangeably. So what is the difference between the two? Is there any difference between the two? Do you think there's a difference between the two? So you can just take a few seconds to answer whether it is, whether you think there's a difference between the pest control and pest management.
So we have the poll up on the screen. So we'll allow for 1 minute to pass. So we have just about 15 seconds left. So we have 79% have responded. So let's go, people. Open up your screen so you could see the poll and respond. And I will share on the screen thereafter. Oh, my camera is off, sorry. Yes, so we do have persons voting away. Okay, so we have 10 seconds, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lovely. Thanks, everyone. Over to you, Kathy.
Okay, so we're seeing that most people would agree that there is a difference between pest control and pest management. So most people agreed with me because I think, yes, there is a difference. Okay, so let us look at the differences. So pest control, traditionally, what we think of with pest control, control means that you have some power over something, right? So you're trying to, we use terms more like eliminating the pest, or reducing the numbers to almost zero, or people say eradicate. I don't think that's really possible, but those are terms that people have used in the past in terms of pest control. And often it's one method that you'd use to carry down the levels of the pest. And the result is often immediate. And so it's often a short-term effect you get with pest control. Whereas with pest management, what you have is, it's a more holistic approach where you're looking at the whole cropping system, the environment that the pest is in. So, and you're not looking at just one pest, one type of organism, but how it's operated within the environment, or in that ecological system, in that microclimate or ecosystem. So the pest management is taking a holistic approach, which is looking at the pest biology, its behavior, physiology, things like that, and trying to get the pest populations to levels that we can tolerate. So we're not trying to totally eliminate the pest, but we want to get to a level where it doesn't cause economic or aesthetic loss to what is important to us. Okay, and it requires a bit more thought and planning than, say, pest control, because you need to make some decisions. You need to decide what is most appropriate to do and make some decisions. However, it's a more long-term solution to your pest problem, and it's often more compatible with the environment and the ecosystem that you're dealing with, the cropping ecosystem that you have there. Okay. So let us go now into some of the actual eco-friendly pest management practices, which is what this presentation is really supposed to be about. Okay. So, but I felt it was important to sort of lay the foundation before we go into some of the practices, because I figure you need to understand some of the basic principles before we get into the meat of the matter. So, what is an eco-friendly practice? Normally, it's a natural method. It's environmentally friendly and safe. It's sustainable, and it has very little impact on ecological systems. So based on all of that, you would say that because you're using natural methods or even natural insecticides, you're not using harmful or the ones that can be more potentially harmful that can persist in the environment as long. And so you would have less contamination of your air, your water, your food, if the air quality is better, the water quality. And it's especially important in sensitive areas. If you have a waterway that's close by, or water table is close to the surface, you're gonna reduce the chances of contaminating the water table by using a pest management approach as opposed to a pest control approach. Okay. Also, you have, because you're using less harmful chemicals and less harmful approaches, you will have your beneficial organisms will be protected. And beneficial organisms could be your natural enemy, as well as bees, butterflies that are pollinators. And therefore, you improve your biodiversity. And we all know that an environment that has greater biodiversity is a healthier, more productive environment than one that has very little biodiversity. Pest management, eco-friendly pest management practices also will be safer for pets, your farm animals, children, humans, and these practices don't promote pesticide resistance. Okay, so chances of you getting your pest levels down to a level that it will not cause economic loss or aesthetic loss are greatly improved. Okay. One of the important and a key, I would say, a foundation or keystone of pest management is monitoring. You need to scout your field. You need to inspect your house to know, firstly, what pest is there, what numbers are they present there. So, and then that will tell you whether you need to take action or not. So if the numbers are not high enough to warrant an action to be taken, and we would call that an action threshold, then you don't take any action, so you don't put anything unnecessary into that environment. It will save you money and it will help save the environment. So, and any unnecessary treatments. Okay. So let's go now into some of the eco-friendly pest management practices that we find. So I'm just going to give you some general terms, and then we can go specifically for the farm and the households. Okay. So ecological management has a term I'm sure people are familiar with cultural techniques, where you're trying to reduce the pest levels and or that are present, or prevent the pest populations from increasing too high. And that in that way, you're going to reduce the damage to your crop or your livestock, but you're using what is already existing in your environment for these cultural practices. We have another ecological management tactic is sanitation, where you keep your field or your house area free from any crop debris or anything that they can shelter in, or food and that sort of thing, which would be favorable for the pest to thrive. Okay. And then we have what we call habitat manipulation, which is a little similar to the cultural techniques, but in habitat manipulation, as the name suggests, we're trying to alter some of the conditions in the environment to make it unfavorable to the pest. And then we have what we call irrigation and water management. Sometimes irrigation helps the plant to thrive, and that can, if you have a healthier plant, it can also be able to withstand some of the damage from the pests better. And sometimes if you overwater plants, you may have other things coming in. You may have some of the soil diseases coming in that will make it worse for your plants. So what irrigation and water management, those are very important as well in ecological management. The other one we look at type of another tactics that we can use are physical and mechanical methods, which will prevent or remove the pests from your area. And then we have biological control, as the name suggests, it's using other organisms to reduce the pest levels. And we call them generally natural enemies, and they can be either predators, which are non-specific, they are general feeders. So they will feed on the pests as well as other organisms. And then we have what we call parasitoids, which target arthropods specifically. For parasitoids, they usually parasitize the pest host and they kill the pest host, not like other parasites, which may live in a host and the host will be able to sustain several numbers of the parasite within its body. With parasitoids, once they've completed their development in the host, the pest host dies. Okay. So it's actually a very effective method of more desirable to use parasitoids. They also tend to be very specific. So they're not general like the predators. So the predators can probably feed. The advantage of predators is that they would feed more. So they reduce more numbers, but they would also reduce numbers of other organisms that you're not interested in reducing numbers. Whereas the parasitoids, they're more specific, but you would require more of the parasitoids to carry down the population level. So it takes a while for the parasitoids to carry down the pest population level. Okay. And then we have the organic or low toxicity products, which some of them, we have them available already, like the diatomaceous earth. We have botanical pesticides available at a commercial level. Some of the earlier ones especially contain neem oil. You have some other essential oil sprays such as eucalyptus. You might have eucalyptus in some of them. I know that some companies have been looking at and have developed sprays that would have maybe some cinnamon or clove oils and those sort of oils in their sprays that can be used as insecticides, and then you have the insecticide also. Okay. So those are your different main categories of tactics that can be used in your pest management approach. So if we consider a farm situation, we can look at cultural techniques where you rotate crops. Now, the rotational crops, it may not be feasible in all situations, but important because you may not have the time. Some farmers, they plant hot peppers continuously with no break. That is because of the market, but it is not the ideal situation because that helps to build up the pest population over time. So you want to, if you're doing a crop rotation strategy, you want to rotate with crops that don't have your main pest present. So if you have, if you're planting, if your main crop is a crucifer, you don't, like a cabbage or cauliflower, you don't want to rotate it with broccoli. You want to rotate it with a crop that does not have the pest that you would find on cabbage and cauliflower. You can also plant crops around your field, and you can have trap crops, which are more attractive to the pests. And so the pests would be, when they come into your field, they would encounter the trap crops first. And so they would settle on the trap crops and start feeding there. And then you can remove the trap crop. So that's what it says, as the name suggests, is that it them and then remove the trap crop. And so you don't have them in your field. You can also plant repellent crops, which can deter pests. Some of the more common ones would be like marigold, for example, which can repel some of the insect pests and nematodes. Then another cultural technique is to remove entirely plants that are highly infested, or you can prune away, maybe if you have some parts of the plants that are very highly infested with the pest, and remove that from your field and destroy that separately so that it is not in your field still. I forgot to mention, I meant to say that my focus, because I'm an entomologist, my focus is more on the insects and the arthropods rather than the diseases. Even though I mentioned some of these diseases and some of these techniques will be useful for both insect pests as well as for the pathogens and some of your other pests that I had mentioned before. And another cultural technique, you can apply compost as a manure, but also it can help to, for example, if you have weeds, you can apply compost, and that can help to dampen the growth of the weeds. But you have to ensure that the compost is well decomposed, because if it's not, you may have some organisms in there, undesirable organisms that may have pest properties. Okay. The ecological management of the crop environment will continue with what we call manipulation, habitat manipulation. One example is to use a mulch. But any mulch can be an organic mulch, or it can be a plastic mulch. Plastic mulches are very helpful in reducing weed levels as well. Sanitation, I mentioned before, removing the crop residue from the field. So even if you have pests in parts of the crop, and you prune it, or you harvest and some fall, you need to remove those from the field so that they don't go back and reinfest your crop. And then irrigation and water management, you can one thing is to avoid overwatering the plants, because as I mentioned before, if you overwater the plants, you're going to have too much moisture, and you can have fungi proliferating under those conditions. When we look at biological control practices, one of the major things you can do is to either augment or conserve your beneficial insects. So, here we have the ladybird beetles on their larvae. In this middle photograph here, you may not recognize, but that is a ladybird beetle larva. And they're predators, and they can feed on a large number of aphids, especially, and bring down the numbers. But you need to have conditions that will not kill them. So you don't want to spray harsh chemicals, harsh insecticides that's going to kill them. You can also plant, have flowering plants that would encourage them to go there for nectar and feeding, and so that they will already be there. You're encouraging them to stay around so that when your pest levels start to increase, they will already be there or close to your field. You can have things that would encourage birds or bats or spiders around your field. Some leaf litter here and there around the field. These spiders can hide under that. And you can also use bacterial agents. One of the more popular ones is, we know it as Bt, Bacillus thuringiensis. Physical and mechanical control tactics that can be used, as the name suggests, traps. And I think people will be quite familiar with a lot of these sticky yellow traps. Those are very useful in trapping, in monitoring aphids and whiteflies. So you can tell if the aphids and the whiteflies, if the numbers are increasing, but because they're sticky, so the color attracts them, and then the stickiness sticks them to the trap, so you get rid of them. You also have pheromone traps. So some of your insects, they emit pheromones, and if that can be synthesized or used in a trap, then they would be attracted to the trap, and then you can have just water with a little bit of dishwashing liquid, and when they go there, they fall in the water and drown. And then you can have light traps as well. Some of the moths which have their larval stagey caterpillars could be pests. They would be attracted to the lights. The only drawback with the light traps is that they're not very specific, so they would attract a wide, it's not very discriminatory. So it will attract both moths that have pest stages, as well as those that don't. And then you can handpick pests off plants, and that is something that, has been done from a long time ago, and it's very eco-friendly, because once the pests are not in high numbers, the numbers are low enough that you can, pick them off, and the pests are large enough that you can see them, then that is to me, a very advisable strategy that you can use. And then you can also make barriers. You can put sticky bands around your tree trunks. So you have this crawling insects, for example, your ants, so it prevents them from crawling up your trees or any other crawling insects. Or you can have some sort of abrasive material, like one of the common ones uses ash, and you can just sprinkle that around maybe like the trip circle, making sure it doesn't touch the leaves, and that when the pest crawls over it, especially soft-bodied pests, they will the outer surface will be damaged, and so they'll be more susceptible to secondary infections coming, causing them damage. For an urban setting now, I'm going a little over my time, so I hope I'll try to run through this a little quickly so that I don't keep you all too much. In terms of cultural techniques, storing food in airtight containers so you don't have oxygen. So if you have the pest, you have warehouse moths and flour, if you put it in an airtight container, it wouldn't be able to survive without the oxygen, and so eventually will die. You can do things like plant herbs that are known to have repellent or insecticidal properties like basil and lemongrass, mint near your windows and doorways. And so that can repel some of the household pests that may want to come into your house. In terms of habitat manipulation, what you can do is reduce areas where you ever notice with like especially like with cockroaches, if you have a drawer full of papers, they tend to go in there and they hide. They will, they will eat the paper too, but they will go in there and hide in there. So that is a good place for them to seek shelter. And it's hard for you to get them out of there. You'd have to just get rid of all the papers. So if you try to reduce areas like that where you have a lot of clutter, it provides less hiding places for them. In terms of mosquito, you can remove standard water, stagnant water, so that you do have them being able to breed there. In terms of sanitation, make sure that you sanitize and clean your food area where you prepare your food regularly, so you don't have bits of food dropping all over, so that the pest doesn't have anything to have food to feed on. You empty your trash regularly, you clean your gutters. That will help in terms of mosquito breeding as well. In terms of water management, again, if you want to we mentioned the standing water, so no standing water for the mosquito breeding. And then for leaky pipes and areas where you have water leaking, try to fix those roofs leaking. And that way, termites and cockroaches like these damp areas. So if you don't have these leaky places, you're going to reduce the chances of them having a place to come in and be able to survive there. And you cover your water tanks and barrels with netting or mesh, again, for mosquito, to prevent mosquito breeding. In terms of biological control, what we can do is, if I know what you can encourage birds by having, some flowering trees or plants that they would like, so they would come around, or trees that they would rest on. In Jamaica, I know this the one with bats not going to be very popular, but you could erect some bat houses, just up on a high pole, and you have like a little bat house to encourage them to come in there. They are really good feeders of insects. Well, you have frutivores, but you have insectivores that can take down insect numbers quite a bit. Ensure that you don't have any areas where your pests can come in. So any little crack or crevice, make sure that it's properly sealed or cut off. So you either seal it, cork it, or you put in screens so that cockroaches and things like cockroaches and mice don't have an area where they can, sneak in these openings to come into your house. I just have this. I thought I would include this do-it-yourself spray, which some of you might find useful and practical. So I just have a few examples. So we have Scotch bonnet, or you can use another fruit, or garlic and onion, and you blend them together, grate them in water, leave it in a dark place overnight for a few hours or overnight. You strain it, and then you can use it as a spray, and it can repel things like aphids, caterpillars, whiteflies, ants, and cockroaches. So it can be used on your farm, or you can use in your house as well. Another one that we can use is citrus peel, and it can be any citrus. Oranges, lime, lemon, whatever citrus you have available, you boil it in some water and then you spray it. Once it's cool, you spray it, and it can deter a wide range of insects, including ants and cockroaches and flies. And the citrus peel itself is a natural cleaner, so that is an added bonus if you use it to wipe down your cupboards. Another, I had mentioned before that we already have neem oil or neem extract in commercial quantities commercial formulations. But if you want to make your own, you can just take a few handfuls of the neem leaves, add a little bit of dish soap and some water. And once that's cooked, you add the dish soap actually after you boil the neem in water. And once it's cool, you strain it. And you can use that as a spray for aphids, mites, whiteflies, caterpillars, scale insects. So that is another useful one that's easy to do. Lemongrass, if you have any lemongrass growing, you can boil it in water and you can add a few drops of some essential oils. You can add mint or eucalyptus and strain it and put it in a spray bottle, and that would be a mosquito repellent. And it would have a nice smell. One of the drenches, garlic is known for being used against nematodes. So you can either crush or grate the garlic in oil and some soap and water, leave it overnight, strain it, and then use it as a drench. So you're not spraying it on the plant, but you're drenching the soil. And you can have that being effective against the nematodes and fungi. And it may actually help in improving the health of the plant as well. And finally, we have the old ashes that we talked about earlier. We said you can make a barrier. You can actually just burn firewood or charcoal in your next barbecue. You just take out the ashes and put it around your plants. And that is very effective against these slugs and ants, and any soft-bodied insects, the cutworms that would tend to come out at night and want to go on your plants. It would be effective against them. So to sort of wrap up, what you need to do in terms of pest management is, remember, you need to scout your field or inspect your house, identify what pests are present, if any. Then you need to decide on the appropriate management tactic or tactics, and then implement that strategy. And remember, you have a slew of strategies, management tactics that you can use to come up with your action plan. And remember, doing nothing is also an option. It is a plan of action. Okay, so you don't have to do, if the levels are low enough, you can do nothing, but just continue. The important thing, remember, I said monitor and scout. So the eco-friendly pest management, why is it important? It's sustainable, it's safer for human health and the environment. It's a more long-term solution. Another thing to remember and I want you to take away is always remember to scout your field or your house, and you need to identify your pests, what is present, devise a plan of action, and implement it. So I came up with this SIDI, SIDI. It scouts, identify your pests, devise a plan of action, and then implement it. Scouts, identify, devise a plan of action, and implement it. Okay? SIDI. So thank you for your attention and giving me a little extra time. I know I went a little over. I'm sorry about that. But I hope that it was interesting and you were engaged. And for more information, feel free to email me at caffeemd@gmail.com.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Kathy, for this presentation. I know we touch a variety of areas, even to the point including some of the pests in the home. And so I'm sure some persons would appreciate that. We do have some of the questions already coming in. So I would encourage persons to raise their hand. We want to have it very engaging, have some discussion. So feel free to raise your hand. I will also take the questions from the chat and I will read them out. So we have Marcus hands up. Marcus, go ahead. Thank you.
Hi, thank you again. Kathy, just for your comments, the use of neem technology. I know you mentioned neem oil and other emulsifiable formulations. what is your view on the use of neem continuously and or rotating neem as part of the management of pests? You know, because normally we
Rotated.
recommend it to rotate
Mhm.
inputs, right? So what is your comment on that?
When you say rotate like a neem oil with a neem oil extract as opposed to another neem product? Or
Not necessarily, well, this I use the term neem technology generically right now, right?
okay.
But I strongly believe, and you know this for a long time, I was involved in introducing a lot of neem technology in Jamaica and the Caribbean and Nemex and stuff like that. And while we all embrace neem technology and we think it's safer and so on, I often do not get the sense that people see neem as a frontline technology and sustainably so. What I mean by sustainably so, I mean, in other words, it remains continuously to be used in your system. Now, my understanding, you remember we are trained to rotate actives and so on, right? And I think
Right.
that also happens with neem. I think so. Now, if we understand neem as something with, 23 different liminoids or actives, and they isomerize, which makes it even more complex, it's like a ninja. And they work in so many different complex ways, anti-feeder and growth regulator, repellent. It's a very complex
Bacteria. Mhm.
molecule, right? Or product. So from my perspective and my experience, it is impossible, or maybe I should soften it and say highly unlikely that pests will develop resistance to neem if it is used continuously in a program. I don't know if you understand how I express
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, right. Okay. I agree because as you mentioned, there's so many different compounds in the azodiractin that you would say that you have the azodiractin, you have in a neem product, you would have so many products, other compounds that would have different modes of action, as you mentioned. Roots of action, and so they target different parts of the insects system, and you also have some that go across phylogenies, and so you'd have some that it can be effective against some of the fungal diseases as well. So it is very useful because, as I had mentioned, it's effective against a wide range of pests. So it is very useful in that sense. The only the only thing that I would say is that just because in pest management, you would want to, you did mention, as rightly so, that you would have different modes of action, but you would want to still rotate, but perhaps maybe in a different formulation, you can rotate with the neem, because it's not just the neem, but the additives, the innate ingredients that may also have some. They should not be, as the name suggests, they're innate, so they should not pose any problems in terms of development and resistance in your pest population. But just maybe one carrier may be more effective in delivering the neem to the pest site of action that you want it to be. And so it may be useful to rotate different products across the board.
Okay, thanks for your
I have not,
question. Go ahead, Coffee, sorry.
and just to say, Marcus, I have not known, and I've not met any farmer who uses neem. Maybe you have, but I have not met any farmer who uses neem continuously. So I don't have the data to say yes or no. But based on what I would suspect, I don't think, because it is one of the more natural, is a natural botanical insecticide, it should not be cause for concern to say you would develop resistance in your pest population to the neem products.
Okay, thanks for your question, Marcus. Thanks for the response, Kathy. Before we take you, Richard, I'll interchange between the hands up and the chat. And so one person is asking, they'd be grateful for tips on dealing with the invasive giant African snail. I know this is an issue all over, so if you can provide us some tips, some techniques for dealing with the giant African snail.
Honestly, I have not had much experience with the giant African snail, but and I know that it's very aggressive. So, but whatever methods mentioned, so you're going to have to use a more than one prong approach in terms of the giant African snail. If you want to use some of the softer methods in terms of like the ashes, sprinkling around your plants, I think though that it requires a bit more. You can do the hand picking and removal and destroying. So you remove them from your field, and you can just put them in a drum in hot water, or you can just put them in a plastic bag, tie it tightly, and I think that you may so that they become oxygen deprived, but you may require something else to, maybe some heat may be required, to kill them. So several methods may have to be used. But as I said, honestly, I have not had much experience with the giant African snail in itself. I've had other snails and slugs and snails, but not that one in particular. And I know that it is really aggressive snail that feeds on a wide range. So even when you think that you don't have food sources, but it will it can feed on things other than your crops, what you would think is garbage, it would feed on that. So it seems to be quite resourceful and and I think that's one of the reasons why it has been able to survive in such a wide range of environments.
Okay, thanks for the response there. Of course, if we have persons within the chat within the forum that have that in-depth experience, we also welcome you sharing. Richard, go ahead.
Thanks a lot, Nikilia. Kathy, thanks very much for this enlightening presentation that you provided to us. Just one question. There's a farmer that I visited recently. She operates on a semi-enclosed greenhouse structure, and she is having a lot of problems with diamondback moth. And I heard you mention it just now in your presentation. What will be your recommended IPM strategy for addressing diamondback in her if you want to call it shade house, right? The side walls are open, but it's covered with a roofing. And touching on terms of what could be the physical, biological, in terms of natural predators, and lastly, some ecological friendly products that you can use for chemical control.
Okay. So in terms of diamondback moth, one of the things that you can do is to trap crops. Mustard, Indian mustard. They can be attracted to that. So she can plant that around her greenhouse outside, so that they would encounter the mustard before they get into this greenhouse. It would have to be crops. Well, I know Indian mustard, but other brassicas can be used to trap the diamondback moth, and then remove it. In terms of I said other if she wants to try something that is, she can try what's on the market. I mean, BT is one of the common ones. BT products, those have been overused, I know, but we may have some new formulations coming out. But she can try some of those, as well as she can try some of the botanicals. So something like the garlic, pepper, onion spray. She can also try that. Use that on her crop. And that should, but she has to make sure when she's spraying, and not just the product itself, but when you're spraying, to make sure that she gets to the diamondback moth. So if it is, I'm not sure, I don't remember if you mentioned what crop she's growing, but if it's something like cabbage, you have to get it before the cabbage starts to fall. And, because once the leaves fall, it's going to be hard to get them if they're inside, they'll be feeding on the inside and you won't be able to get to, because these are sprays that will have their contact, what you would call a contact insecticide. So they will need to be in contact with the pest or with the plant. And the pest will come with the diamondback moth will come in contact with it for it to be effective. If it's and the same thing with if it's cauliflower, be sure if she's using a spray that she gets it where, like under the cauliflower heads, where the diamondback moth larvae will be, so that it will be effective. Otherwise, it will be a waste of her time to be spraying and the larvae are not on the outer surface of the cauliflower heads.
Okay. You wanted to add anything else?
I know there are some parasitoids that have been released here. Anagyrus cabali is one of them that comes to mind quickly. They have been introduced here, and they have been, I think, some scouting and monitoring, they have found them out and they have been able to survive. So if they're there naturally, then if you're in an area where they already have that but as a parasitoid, then it may be, if she knows of anybody who maybe they know that they have that particular parasitoid, maybe she may want to look into something like a little small rearing, doing her own little rearing where she can get the diamondback moth larvae, put it in a container, or if she has a plant, and put it in a little cage, encourage the diamondback moth to come there, have the larvae there. Then you have if she doesn't have that parasitoid, get it from someone she knows that has it and introduce it there. And then they would lay the eggs and then reproduce, and then she can have those and she can expand that and then put it onto her crop as well. That though will be effective for when you have lower numbers of the diamondback moth. You're going to as I said, the parasitoid is more specific, so they're not it's hard. You're not going to see a big reduction in the population right away. There will be a lag. The population is going to increase, and there will be a lag before it starts to go down. Then you have to give the parasitoid time to increase before you will see a drop in the diamondback moth population.
Thanks for that in-depth explanation. Of course, we could reach out to Kathy to get, you know, more context of the farm and, you know, more context specific solutions that may be applicable. I know a lot of people may have to leave now. So what I will do while we take the rest of the questions, I'm going to launch the feedback poll again to assist us, you know, in improving our various sessions, get an idea of the topics that are of interest and value to you. So I'm launching that on your screen now. If you could just take a few seconds to respond to it. With that, I will take Gareth, and then we'll take one from the chat. Go ahead, Gareth.
Yes, good morning. Ms. Kathy, you mentioned in your presentation about using garlic to control nematode, especially the melodogyne. My question is, does the garlic works as a repellent, or does it cause mortality to the nematode? And the next question is, does it only control melodogyne, or does it have also effect against the endoparasitic nematodes such as Rhodophilus and Pratylincus?
Thanks for that question, Gareth. Most of the experiences with the root knot nematodes, because you know that's one of the major ones. So it's really with root knot nematodes that I've had any experience with, and it actually I'll have to look back and see the research, but it actually has been able to, you've actually seen where the garlic, when it has been applied as a drench, it reduced the number of the root knots, not the existing one, but in terms of reducing over time. So it does have that ability. So it's not just a repellent, but it does have the ability to reduce the numbers. And the garlic extract also seems to have some ameliorant effect on the roots, where and I know I saw that in one study where the roots actually seem to improve with the application of the garlic. So it was a two-prong benefit against the nematodes, as well as in improving the health of the plant itself by acting on the plants.
Okay, thanks for that. So we'll take another question from the chat. Of course, persons feel free to raise your hand, use the raise hand function. So how often would you recommend the use of those homemade sprays? And this based on your experience.
For the homemade sprays, they don't, because they're botanical and they don't have anything in them which will make them persist long. You're not adding anything really. Maybe if some of them you can add a little alcohol, but you have to be careful with the alcohol. You would need to reapply, like if you have rainfall, you would need to reapply after rains. One of the things that you should do first, though, is test it out on a few leaves before you spray an entire plant, because you just want to make sure you don't have any phytotoxic effects. You know, if you make it too strong or anything like that. So you want to make sure you do that. Adding a little bit of soap can help with it sticking to the plant, and the soap will also have a little bit of insecticidal properties as well. But I would say you probably would, if you have a high enough infestation, you probably would have to reapply every maybe 3 to 5 days, or more often, maybe every 3 days or so.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. Kelvin, we will take you now.
Hi, good morning. I actually wrote it in the chat, but I think you mentioned about something about repelling mosquitoes early on.
Yeah, one of the sprays, the DIY sprays.
Yeah, so I kind of missed that. But yeah.
Or which one, that one had a little bit of eucalyptus oil. I don't remember if I have the exact quantities in terms of so I would say maybe 2 handfuls of the lemongrass, and you boil it in the water. You let it cool, and then the things like the mint, the citronella is also a repellent. If you can get citronella oil, mint also, that could be a repellent. So you just add a few drops then, because you don't want it too strong, that it will burn your skin. You just add a few drops to the water. So maybe I may have to do a little research to see exactly how much, but I would say like 2 or 3 handfuls of the lemongrass chopped up, boil it in maybe 2 to 4 cups of water, let it cool, strain it, and then you add if it's citronella or eucalyptus or mint, a few drops of that, and use it as a spray.
Okay, thank you. I've just one more question or a comment. The citronella, I've been trying to find the actual plant or the seeds, and I think there's like some people are mixing it up. Like there's some kind of confusion, because sometimes I see one thing and then I see another thing, and they say it's citronella. Like in terms of repelling the mosquitoes. I don't know if you're familiar or if you know what I'm
No,
talking
I've
about.
actually never seen the never seen the plants. I know the lemongrass, but I've just seen like the citronella oil.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I don't have the plants.
Okay, thank you, Kelvin. So we are birds. Someone wants to know some of the ways they can deter birds without harming them.
Ways they can do what?
Deter birds without actually harming them.
Harming
If you have
them.
any strategies for that.
I know some farmers had some problems with birds up in rural St. Andrew, and they had tried using some scarecrows. I don't think it was that effective, but you can also use loud noises, things that are natural enemies to the birds. Maybe like a noise like the sound of a cat, something like that, is emitted periodically. But in your field, I don't know how you would get something, you'd have to get some kind of recording or something. The only other thing I can think of is to have something like a trap crop or for them to go outside of your field, that something that's more attractive to them, where they would feed there, and so they wouldn't come. They would feed there and not be encouraged to come to your field.
Okay, great. I know in Dominica for the parrots, they have this loud noise that they emit periodically to deter
In
the
the field.
parrots. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So we have Laverne hands up. Go ahead, Laverne.
Yes, good morning. Seems I'm always coming in late. But anyway, for the good doctor there, I have about 2 such things. She could tell me if that is workable. I used to live in very rural areas in Trinidad. I live on a farm now. And in rural areas, there's a lot of trees, forests, everything. Now, whenever dengue comes around, they tell you, cut off, get rid of bush, put no water in your pot plants and all of that. But the thing is, you can't cut down the forest to get rid of mosquitoes. Impossible. So what we came up with at that time, we had a metal barrel and there were a number of citrus trees around. So we chopped up some citrus tree wood, put it in the barrel with some other sweet smelling woods also that you could use and bamboo. And we lit a fire in that barrel with the wood till they burn and then burn down to the point where a lot of smoke. So when it was smoking, we had maneuvered the barrel to the front of the house. And as the breeze comes in, that was like evening time, it would blow the smoke through the house. Everybody come outside, of course, because if you have an asthma person, they can't take on that smoke. So everybody came out and we smoked out that house by the evening time. We had a lovely rest when the night came. Now, this may not work in urban areas, but in country setting, it could work. So you do it ever so often when there's a heavy invasion, I would say, of mosquito. The other thing we did too, when we came to live on this farm, there was a water trough for animals, old water trough, and some barrels we fill up to wet the garden. One of my daughters came up with the idea to put some local fish that she found in the river and put them in there. And the larvae just went after a while. Now, I'm not saying you cannot do this with drinking water, of course not. But water that you use for the garden, for feeding your animals, that it helped to an extent. Of course, when you have unnecessary grass, it harbors mosquitoes. So you always have to keep cutting. And the third thing too, for like ants and cockroach, I understand borax is a good pest control for ants, but I've never tried it yet, but I want to. It's just that I'm not seeing much borax selling on the market. They say if you make the borax with sugar and some other thing and put a little by your windowsill where ants come or so, and I don't know if it could work for termites, but ants and cockroaches, you will have relief for a while because they will take it back with the sweet taste and go. So that's my contribution. And the other thing too, if you have farm, cat and dog are good pest management for mouse. Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much, Doc. So I wait to hear your version.
Thanks, Laverne, for that. Very interesting. The first option that you said is seems to be a two-prong approach where you have both the oils from the citrus being a repellent as well as the smoke going through and also going through the house, and that both the two combined seem to be a winning combination. In terms of the what as I said, with the fish, yes, guppies. I know there have been studies with guppies feeding on the mosquito larvae. Those are some old studies, and they have been very effective in bringing down population. You know, if you have some drains and you have some guppies in there, you're not going to see a lot of mosquito larvae in there. So that is also a very good one. Thanks for reminding me about that. I hadn't thought of that as well. And very practical. And the third, what is the third one you said? Or is the guppy or the borax? Okay, so in terms of using the sugar, and that would be attractive to say the cockroach and the ants, but not to the termites, because the termites going after the wood. So it would be effective against the termites, but in terms of the cockroaches and ants, yeah, it should be effective in that. But I had tried sourcing borax as well a long time ago, and I hadn't been successful in getting it either. I don't know if I haven't seen it on the market.
I saw it once where it was like in a mix for I think cleaning bathrooms or something like that. It was one of the main ingredients in the mix, a powdered form.
Okay. Well, then probably you can use something like that, and as you say, add something to sweeten it for them so that they can take it back to And the thing with ants is that because they groom each other, if they have on their bodies and they with the grooming, it will pass on to the others. So in that sort of powder mixture, that would be good.
Okay, thanks so much for sharing that experience, Lavon. I see some persons are also sharing their experiences in the chat, so please feel free to check some of the things that they are placing in the chat based on their experiences. I'll take a question from the chat and then we will take Kelvin. In terms of grasshoppers, what are some of the things that can be used?
Grasshoppers are a little bit difficult because they tend to they put the eggs in the ground. And I'm not 100% sure that something like just an ash barrier is going to help, because they have enough protection that they can jump over an ash barrier. You may have to use one of the sprays. Let me do some research on that one and get back to you on that, so I can pass on the information to Nikelio. And if she has your email, or you can contact me and I can do some research on that one.
Okay, thanks, Kathy. Okay, thank you very much. Kelvin, go ahead.
I just wanted to comment about the borax. The only place I've seen borax selling is online, places like Amazon and maybe eBay. So I actually use borax in I do CNC machining, so I use that as a what is it? I mix it with the water. It helps prevent rust, apparently, in corrosion in the metal. So I just wanted to say that's like the only place I've seen it online. I don't think I've seen it selling anywhere. Definitely not in Grenada.
Okay,
but I know in the US it's available.
I guess if persons that have access to it could share the details in the various countries. While we're on the borax, I see someone is asking if borax and boric acid is the same. To my knowledge, they're not, but Kafi, I'll pass over to you.
Yeah, no, borax. No, I don't know. They do think they're the same. One of the concerns I know in Jamaica, yeah, I don't know how your system is, but you'd have to get a permit to bring in the borax, because it is, if you're bringing it in for that purpose as an insecticide. So you'd have to check on that if you're going to bring it in. Just to make sure that you're within the laws of your country.
Okay. Well, I guess
Because
that's why it's probably difficult to access based on the regulations. Okay. So we will take another question from the chat. Someone is asking, instead of boiling neem or lemongrass leaves, can they be blended instead? And if they just blend it, would it have the same effect as boiling it?
You can blend it, but you'd have to leave it overnight. And probably you can probably if maybe you use something like a little alcohol in there as well, that can probably help extract the essential oils a little bit better as well. So a little bit of alcohol. You just have to be careful with the alcohol, as I said, and test it on a few leaves, just to make sure you're not getting any phytotoxic effect on your plants.
Okay, so basically we're getting better extraction effect by boiling instead of just blending. Okay, yeah. Excellent. So our next question, of course, is some of the risks associated to the neem. Is there danger to humans from the neem when using either a blender or containers for boiling? What are the risks regarding continued use of those utensils for regular household use?
neem has so many properties. I know it has anti-helminthic and all those. I would say once the utensils are properly washed, if you're going to add something that is going to probably stay on the utensils that you can't totally get rid of, for example, an oil, just make sure you wash it properly. But I mean, people have used neems for washing out as well, but you have to be careful, of course, with it because it can be dangerous. But I would say once the utensils are properly washed, and probably if you use glass instead of plastic, just to be on the safe side.
Okay, thanks for that. Well, I'm also guessing if it's something, used regularly for creating that product, it's best to have specific utensils
Yeah.
for it rather than you using the household utensils for it. Okay, excellent. Of course, feel free to raise your hands as we're, winding down a bit. Right, Kathy. So just for information's sake, in terms of the parasitoid that you mentioned for the diamondback, if you could send the actual name that we can share with persons. Some persons are interested in knowing the actual name. And then we have also what can be used organically for molds or white flies. I guess maybe white flies might be more your area.
If it's a true organic, then all the everything that has to be sourced will have to be from an organic source. But if you just want to use non-synthetic chemicals, the garlic, one of the ones that I mentioned, the garlic, onion, Scotch bonnet pepper spray, that can work. Sticky traps, the yellow sticky traps can work as well for the white flies. Yeah, those are two that come to mind. And a neem, if the person wants to make a neem spray, a do-it-yourself, a DIY neem spray, they can also do that as well.
Okay, excellent. Of course, Dr. Dalip is available for any, personalized questions, as the assessment would have to be based on your conditions. Of course, the responses would be a bit, on the general side, but of course, more details would be required. So we have, Kelvin, you wanted to ask another question?
Yeah, just one question again.
Sure, go ahead, go ahead.
I wanted to know if you have like a Facebook group chat, or if you are interested in doing that. I think it would be a nice thing if you don't already do it.
That's for the CCRAF or?
Yeah, for this, like what we're doing now, with this kind of dialogue.
Right. So a lot of things are under consideration. Again, it requires some level, of managing, because that would be something we have to be very responsive. But we do have the Facebook page. I know persons would have requested doing a group. I would have reached out, but I still have not gotten a feedback as to, how they would want to have that group. So it is under consideration. Of course, we are open to various ways of, building that communication. And if, there are persons who would like to take the lead, since managing the CCRAF myself, and with my colleague, in addition to a lot of the other work that we do, it will be a bit challenging for us to manage the group and be able to respond on a timely manner. So of course, as we said, we're looking to build collaboration. So we're definitely looking to work. Of course, we will provide the support in putting the group together, but it's something we're open to, and you can always reach out, or persons can reach out, and we can discuss further how we can develop, a good group that can be more effective in terms of sharing information rather than waiting for a session every time. Okay, so we are definitely open to that.
Okay, I'll be interested in helping out in any way that I can.
Okay,
that's
excellent.
yeah,
So
you
you
know.
could just send us an email and we all can always meet and discuss how we can move ahead in that direction. And of course, other persons, please feel free to indicate your interest in that. Okay, so thanks so much for that,
Thank you.
Kelvin. Appreciate it, because this is the direction we're trying to go, build those collaboration and have the information sharing more regularly. Because I know persons have a lot of challenges, a lot of experiences to address some of those challenges, and it would be good for us to, you know, be able to communicate in that manner. Karian, I see your hand is up. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Just to ask if this presentation will be shared, the recording after the meeting.
Yes, so the PowerPoint normally is uploaded on our repository AgriPerfas, but for quicker access, it will be shared via email. We have a YouTube channel, we have Facebook, LinkedIn. So after this session ends, the recording will be uploaded to our YouTube channel and shared on our Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter X pages. So just visit any of our platforms and you will have it accessible, but the recording will be on YouTube. And for now, we will share the PowerPoint by email to everyone. Okay?
Thank you so much.
You're most welcome, and thank you for joining us today. We have yes, go
Sorry,
ahead, Kafi.
I've just put the names of the two parasitoids in the chat. The Digmon cutis, I was mixing it up with another one. The one I mentioned before is for mealybug. The Anagyrus is the mealybug parasitoid, but the ones for the diamondback moth Didigman cutis, I know that cutis, I think probably is the one that was more numerous. But yes.
Okay. Thanks, Kafi. Richard, the name is in the chat. You could check it out. I'll share in my follow-up emails as well. I see your hand is up. Charmaine, go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I had a question. I came in a bit late as it relates to cucumbers and varying pests that are affected. I've had some growing and, they just seem to devour the leaves very quickly. So any suggestion, is it just the neem oil or is there something else that can be used for it? Thank you so much.
Okay, so for the cucumber is probably cucumber beetle, diabrottica. Is a beetle that has bands on it or spots? A green beetle with bands going down or with yellow spots?
What I saw was just the green worms. They kind of curled up into the leaves of the cucumber plant.
So it could be something like a melon worm. So yes, the neem would be effective, and you can try. Well, he said it came a little bit late, but the one that had with the Scotch bonnet is on the screen now, with the Scotch bonnets and the garlic and onion and a little dish soap. We can try that as well, but try a little bit first on your leaves and then you can spray it and see. That one should be effective again. Once, but it has to make contact. You have to spray it on the caterpillar.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome, Charmaine. Thanks, Kathy. Of course, you can reach out to Kathy if you have, she's a consultant. She's her area for persons that want to reach out to her to guide you in some of the challenges that you're experiencing, that she can provide, a more guided approach for you. Then you could contact her directly. Kathy, probably you could go back to your last slide so they could see your contact information. We will take a question from the chat and then we will take Leslie. I saw someone works a bit in the aloes in terms of the biostimulants. So Kathy, there was a question to you. If you are aware of have any experience using those aloe-based biostimulants for pest control?
No, I haven't. I've actually never used any aloe-based products as biostimulants. I'll probably have to do some research. I'm taking note of it, so I'll do a little research and see if I find out anything.
Okay, excellent. Of course, I didn't mark the name, but you could always, share some of your experiences in terms of using that. Leslie, please go ahead.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm calling concerning borax. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
we're
Yes.
hearing you clearly. Go ahead.
Great. Now, when you want borax, you go into the supermarket, into the detergent section, and the label and the name of it, don't forget it now, 20 mules borax. And you'll find it right there. It's in a white box. It almost looks like a cornflakes box. But what you use it for is you add it to your detergent when you're washing or anything to do with washing clothes or even insects and stuff like that. But go inside the detergent section and you'll find it right there.
Okay, thank you so much for that. I know person seems interested in the borax. Maybe you could try that, your detergents, or do a little research online to see where you might be able to find it. Okay. That we have a few more questions from the chat and we start to wrap up a bit. We don't want to keep people too long. And I want to present what is coming up next with the CCRAF. In terms of, I know you would have mentioned the sticky trap. Someone is asking how effective are the pheromone traps as an eco-friendly management strategy or as part of your management strategy?
So, they're not a lot of, well, I'm not familiar with too many pheromones widely available here in Jamaica. The one of the early ones is for use against the sweet potato weevil. So so it's in a commercial formulation where the pheromone is, you have like a little rubber slipper, and if it's infused with the pheromone, and then you just put that in your trap, and we would make like just homemade traps. Like you can take a plastic bottle and cut out 2 windows on the side and have them, and then put them like flaps on the side so they act like a landing area for them. And the pheromone is hung on a little hook in the middle. And the bottom of the bottle is filled with water, with soapy water. The important thing is that you have to know where the wind direction is to know where to place your trap. So you have to place the trap down. So how is it? Where the wind is blowing, so it will be blowing if you don't want it to blow through your field because you don't want the pest to be the weevil or whatever pest is being attracted to come through your field. But if you can put it more on the edges of your field, and if it is blowing, so the wind is blowing downwind, and so they would come towards the trap, because they would come up towards where they get in the scent of the pheromone, and then they would land there and then fall in the water and be trapped. That's the main one that I know that has been used very practically here in Jamaica, in the sweet potato fields.
Okay. Great. Okay, so with that, we have Chani hand is up. Chani, go ahead.
Yeah, colleagues, good morning. I just wanted to chime in on an earlier discussion, more or less in terms of the principle. I know that there would have been a discussion about the neem, and I think Marcus was making the point about whether it needs to be rotated. I just wanted to start by saying that, there is a lack of some of the specific data that could guide that one, but in the absence of the data, there are some well-known principles that I would suggest that persons perhaps get familiar with in terms of making the choice of the management strategy, particularly when it relates to a product. And so if we use neem as an example, I think neem, as was said, you have, yes, normally you have to rotate some of your products. The advantage with neem is that you have the multi-mode, that's number one, and I think the Dr. Kathy would have mentioned that. In addition, you have different formulations. Again, these two factors, the different modes, different formulations, it does allow less of the ability for the pest to get accustomed to the ingredients. So it gives you a longer time that you could perhaps theoretically use before rotating it with other products. And so there are two things that we consider, and I think Dr. Kathy would have mentioned that. We have what we call the intra, which is within group rotation, where you look at another formulation, and you have the inter, which is outside of that neem product. You look for another kind of product. So I just wanted to share that. Generally, when you're looking at these botanicals or you're looking at the biocontrol, you would want to select one that preferably has the multi-mode action, and also you have different formulation that will allow you a longer time between which you would have to rotate from product to product or within the product group. So I just wanted to share that as a general principle with the group. Over. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chani. Thanks for that. Of course, we're definitely looking for, the experiences as well of you, the persons out there. Before we take you, Lavon, we'll take a question from the chat and then we'll come to you. So we're moving into ticks. Someone is speaking of ticks in cattle, particularly in the dry season, and they're saying that the use of ivermectin and supermethrin seem to be the go-to products. And if you have the experience in that, if you could propose, some eco-friendly methods for the management of ticks on cattle and in pasture.
I'm not sure if supermethrin is approved for use on cattle, is it? I'm not sure about that one. But I know that in some early developmental stages when I was doing that was a while ago, when I was doing postgrad and we were looking at some of the botanicals, neem extract from both the neem berries and the neem leaves were used to look at the effectiveness against the ticks, and they were found to be effective. I'd have to look up and see if I find that thesis to see exactly what the results, like how effective they were. But yeah, the neem was one of the products that I remember being effective against the ticks.
Okay, thanks.
I'm not sure if there's any formulation on the market that has that can be used again on livestock and cattle.
Okay, thanks much, Kafi. We'll take you, Lavon, and then we'll take the last two questions in the chat.
Yes, I just remember something. Doc, is there any natural or semi-natural for the red ring disease of coconuts and that rhino beetle? Anything discovered recently for that pest?
Yeah,
Thank you.
that one is a hard one. I remember when I was in Belize, we were looking at some it wasn't a pheromone. I'm trying to remember if it was I don't think it was a pheromone. I think it was a virus that could have been formulated that could have been used as a spray for the larvae. But the thing is that once the larvae are in the trunk, it's kind of hard to get to them. You'd have to do some sort of injecting, and the injecting that I saw farmers using, it was with one of the harsher synthetic chemicals they were using as an injection method.
I think that's an area we have to probably see if there is anybody with some in-depth work happening in there, in-depth research. We could probably try and see if we get some details details on that. You could always email us and we could see if we could get some more details on persons that probably doing some level of research on there. I know some farmers do their own little experiment on the farm. So, you know, if persons have that experience as well. So the last two questions we will take, so we can wrap up for the day. So in terms of the lemongrass spray, person wants to know, does it evaporate rapidly, and possibly, you know, how long is its efficacy when you spray?
As I had mentioned before, I think with all of those botanicals, because if you do it, as I said, you're doing it as a DIY spray, you're not adding anything that will lengthen the time, the persistence in the environment. So it will degrade on the sunlight and regular heat and conditions. So I would say, yeah, and rain, it will wash off with rain. So I would say probably 3 days you may have to reapply. But the thing is, after you spray it, you go back the next day to see what sort of effect it is and it has had, and see how the population has reacted to it. And then that will be able to tell you, you know, if you need to do another spray maybe in 2 days' time. But they generally, because it's just a homemade recipe, they're not going to be able to persist very long in the environment.
Okay, great. And so with that, we'll take our final question. If you have anything that might work or that has worked for the melon worms.
I know about some of the synthetic ones, but in terms of, I haven't tried any of these sprays, the homemade sprays against the melonworm. I would suspect, and I know that the melonworm can get the numbers can get very high very fast. So I haven't tried any of those sprays against the melon.
Okay, excellent.
In theory, it's a soft-bodied insect stage of the insect. So anything operates like the diatomaceous earth. I think they have commercially available diatomaceous earth formulations on the market. You can try the ashes as well, and again back to the same garlic, hot pepper, onion spray, which is supposed to be effective against some of these aphids and whiteflies and caterpillars. So that can be tried as well. But I haven't tried it against the melonwood in particular.
Okay, thank you so much, Kathy, and thank you for all of you who joined us today. I know important in the agriculture sector, you know, is the soil health, water management, irrigation, but equally or almost as important are the pests. I know we do get a lot of losses and damages, and you know, a lot of them even just being a nuisance. And so we're very happy to have had Dr. Dalip share those experiences, share some of the practices that we can use, simple, effective, cost-effective as well, that we can use before we move into, you know, some of those harsher chemicals that persons utilize. I know sometimes it can be very challenging, especially, you know, after hurricane season, you have this high incidence of pests and diseases. But, you know, putting together a management strategy is something that persons should consider doing, so you don't always have to be on the reactive end of things. So with that, I want to say thank you again, Kathy, for your support on, you know, facilitating this session. And so what I will do now, I will go into some of the things that are coming up under the CCRAF. Okay, so again, we value your time, we value your patience, and you know, we want persons to to have something that shows they have some level of knowledge. It's not something to qualify that you have a degree, but you know, for the series, we're looking at the certificate of participation that will be awarded to persons that attend at least 2 of the sessions. So because it's our 10th year anniversary, normally we do a 3-part series, but this year we will be doing a 3+1. And I know persons have been always asking for additional sessions. So today we would have spoken about pest, and of course you also have the diseases. So we're looking for the +1 to be on disease control or management within the agriculture sector. We will provide more details on that. So you will be receiving a certificate of participation within those 4 sessions if you would have attended at least 2 of them. Of course, as we celebrate 10 years, I know one name has been the Caribbean Climate Responsive Agriculture Forum. You know, the landscape has changed. We have moved broader beyond the whole climate issues and the climate challenges, and we know there is plenty more beyond climate that is impacting us. And I know, you know, person would have come and have the notion that we're only speaking on climate-related issues, which is not the case. And so we felt there might be a need to evolve a bit the forum to get a name that is more encompassing of the full spectrum of the challenges and the full spectrums of the opportunities within the agriculture sector, because there are not only challenges, because sometimes, many times actually, challenges present a lot of opportunities that we tend to miss. And so we take that as an opportunity to, you know, further improve and have persons further engage with the forum and not have the notion that we're only speaking to climate-related challenges. So I have shared in the chat where you can vote for a name, and then at the end of August into September, I will share a poll for persons to select. So we want you to be part of the process because the forum is for you. And so we do have some coming up already. And as I mentioned earlier, very important for us is the translation of knowledge to action on the ground, and we'll be hitting the road in Jamaica. That is our first stop. And so the CCRAF is heading on the road, where we'll be on the ground with this session in collaboration with the Ministry of Agriculture and the ICA office in Jamaica. We'll be delivering a training session on soil health. And we're definitely looking forward to meeting some of you, meeting some of the partners, and, you know, building on some of that collaboration. Of course, we do have a short video for persons who may not have seen it. What I will do, I think I need to share with voice. I'm gonna reshare my screen. Share with sound. Okay. So we have a short promotional video. So we do have, outside of Jamaica, we do have some other countries that we will be on the ground with the CCRAF. And of course, partnership and collaboration is very important. And definitely looking to meet some of you. So this is a short promotional video that we put in place. Just one second. Lovely. So I hope you're excited as us. Definitely it's always good to be on the ground doing the work, actually showing you exactly how to do. It's one thing in speaking about it, and it's another thing in actually learning how to do it. And so we're definitely looking to build up on that this year and coming years, and looking forward to the collaboration, the connections, and working together across the region. And so for our next session, as I mentioned, we're looking to have that session on disease management. We would have touched on the pest side, but the disease side is also very important. And so we will provide you more details on that as we go through the confirmation of the presenters and the content for that session. So allow us a few days and we will provide some more details. As it relates to the recording, as soon as this session is done, it will be downloaded and I will upload the recording onto our YouTube channel. So feel free to go into our YouTube channel. We also have a lot of the past sessions. The recording is on our YouTube channel, and I will be sending also an email with the PowerPoint. I know persons would want the actual content. And of course, if you have any specific questions, any specific conditions on your farm or the work that you're doing, or even your backyard garden, and also Dr. Dalip does do a lot of work in terms of the household pest as well. If you have challenges, you can also reach out to her and she can provide you some more specific solutions as it relates to that. So with that, I would like to say thank you to all of you for joining us today. And thank you very much, Dr. Dalip. And also to my co-coordinator, Chani, thank you for all the support. I know you see in my face all the time, but we do have Chani in the background providing a lot of the support in terms of bringing out all this content and all these, innovative ways of sharing the content with you. And with that, we're definitely looking to see some of you in Jamaica next week. So I wish all of you a lovely afternoon and end of the week, and we will see you soon. Thank you very much and have a good afternoon.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye,
Bye,
everyone.
bye.
Thank you. Good session.
Thank you, everyone.
Good
Good
night.
session.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye.
Take care.
Excellent session, Dr. Dalip.
Great
Bye,
session.
everybody.
Bye,
Bye.
Good work. Take care. Bye-bye.